Have you ever really thought about it? What would happen if you just stepped out onto Mars? No fancy suit, no billion-dollar rover, just you. For 5 seconds. Sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? Well, the reality is a whole lot more brutal than you'd think. Okay, let's do this. Let's run the thought experiment and see what really goes down.
You know the drill. We see it all the time. Mars, the red planet, our next great adventure, humanity's backup drive in case things go south here on Earth. It's this beautiful, romantic idea, isn't it? But, yeah, that vision kind of glosses over a few, deadly details.
For starters, the temperature is a wild ride. You might step out during the day and think, hey, this isn't so bad, a nice, pleasant 20 degrees Celsius. But the second the sun goes down, the temperature absolutely plummets to a bone-shattering minus 153 degrees Celsius. We're talking instant, severe frostbite.
Now, to really get a feel for the danger, we need a volunteer. So let's meet Chase. He's our guy, our brave pioneer, sent ahead to get the first Martian base up and running. His story? Well, his story is going to show us exactly why Mars isn't just a fixer-upper. It's an active, honest-to-goodness death trap.
Okay, so the very first thing Chase would notice, if he was foolish enough to take off his helmet, is the air. Or, more accurately, the complete lack of breathable air. The atmosphere there is super thin, and it's something like 95% carbon dioxide. You couldn't take a single breath. It's totally, completely unbreathable.
And it's not just what's in the air that's a problem. Mars is famous for these colossal dust storms. And I don't mean a little bit of dust getting in your eyes. We're talking winds screaming past at over 100 kilometers an hour, carrying tiny, sharp particles that could literally slice through a spacesuit.
On top of all that, you've got a weak magnetic field in that super thin atmosphere, which basically means zero protection from the sun's nasty radiation. And then there's the atmospheric pressure. It's less than 1% of what we have on Earth. And that little detail, that's the one you really, really need to remember.
So here's the bottom line. You can't just wander around on Mars. To have any chance of surviving, Chase doesn't just need a house, he needs a fortress. He needs to build a totally self-contained bubble of life in the middle of a dead world. So let's take a look at what goes into building something like that.
And building this bubble is a huge job. First up, you need a shell that's completely airtight and heavily insulated. That's what's going to keep the deadly atmosphere out and shield you from all that radiation. Then you need a life support system, the whole shebang for managing your air, water, and waste. And finally, you've got to power all of this, and your only real option is a massive field of solar panels.
See, on Mars, you have to get real about your resources, and fast. There are no taps to turn on, no rivers to draw from. Water is everything. Every single drop has to be recycled. As Chase himself says, you kind of have to get used to the idea that today's cup of coffee is, well, it's made from yesterday's coffee.
All right, so Chase has got shelter, he's got air, he's got recycled water. But a person can't live on freeze-dried rations forever. If you want to stay long-term, if you really want to make it, there's only one path forward. You have to grow your own food. And that brings us to the next giant hurdle, Martian farming.
And which a look at that. After months and months of work, Chase has actually done it. He's grown potatoes. You gotta love his sense of humor, right? But growing food on Mars is nothing like the movies. It takes a pressurized greenhouse, perfectly controlled temperatures, and one very special ingredient.
Yep, that's the secret sauce. The soil on Mars is basically just dead, useless dust. It has none of the organic stuff that plants need to grow. So, the only fertilizer available on the entire planet? Chase himself. It sounds gross, I know, but it is absolutely essential for survival.
So Chase has actually done it. He built a home, he's got water, he's growing his own food. You'd think he's conquered Mars. But Mars is relentless. And just when you start to feel safe, it has a way of reminding you exactly who's in charge.
A tiny little micrometeoroid, we're talking smaller than a grain of sand, comes screaming out of the sky and slams into the base. It punches a hole right through the greenhouse. And in a moment of just terrible luck, it also cracks Chase's helmet while he's inside tending his potatoes. In an instant, his perfect little bubble of life is compromised.
Okay, so here's the situation. Chase is in the greenhouse, which is now open to the Martian atmosphere. His helmet is cracked. The only spare is back in the main habitat. He is trapped. To make matters worse, a dust storm is kicking up outside, so a complicated repair is totally out of the question.
The distance between the greenhouse and the main airlock, it's tiny. It's a run that would take, 5 seconds?
He does the math in his head. The storm's getting worse, his suit's not gonna hold. Can he do it? Can he survive a 5-second unprotected sprint on the surface of Mars?
He's running out of options. Chase decides he has to risk it. He thinks he knows the dangers. He's worried about the cold. He's worried about holding his breath. But he is tragically, fatally, underestimating the one threat that matters most. And that's his last thought. It's only 5 seconds. He figures the main enemy is that extreme cold. He thinks, I can hold my breath for 5 seconds, I can take a little frostbite. In his mind, it's a gamble, but it's the only one he has. It's also the worst miscalculation of his life.
See, the frostbite would never have gotten him. He wouldn't have even had time to suffocate. The true, instantaneous killer on Mars is the unbelievably low atmospheric pressure. Here on Earth, our thick atmosphere is constantly pushing down on us, and that pressure is what keeps the liquids inside our bodies, well, liquid. On Mars, that pressure is pretty much gone.
And this is the brutal, horrifying reality. Without a pressurized suit, the second Chase steps outside, the liquids in his body, the moisture in his eyes, his saliva, even the water that makes up his blood would all instantly, violently boil. The scientific term is ebullition. He wouldn't last 1 second, let alone 5.
So, let's just recap. Mars is trying to kill you in at least 4 major ways. You've got the unbreathable CO2 atmosphere, you've got the insane temperature swings, and you've got a constant bath of radiation. But the number one, the undisputed, instant killer, it's the atmospheric pressure. That's the one with zero margin for error.
Chase's tragic little 5-second dash teaches us a huge lesson. Space isn't just empty. It is actively hostile in ways we can barely even wrap our heads around. It's our understanding of physics, of biology, that's going to keep the next generation of explorers alive. So, while Chase might have met a grim end on Mars, his story isn't over. Where do you think we should send him next?